Welcome to Nurturing Our Roots, the journey from slavery to freedom live Zoom session with Antoinette and Karran. We're live every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, the talk show where ordinary people with extraordinary family stories can be heard. If you have a story that you would like to share with us, please, we would love to hear your story. Please contact us at nurturingourroots@gmail.com. I'm Antoinette, and here's my co-host, Karran. Hi, Karran, how are you?
Hi, Antoinette. I'm fine. How are you?
I am doing fine. Thank you for asking. So we're going to have a wonderful show tonight, and I'm excited about this show. So, Karran, you just want to tell everybody what we'll be talking about tonight while I go ahead and get us like stationary where we need to be?
Yep. Yeah. So welcome, everybody, and welcome everyone who's joining us in the chat. If you have any questions or comments, please type them into the live chat. Tonight, Antoinette and I are going to talk about some of the various records that we can find our ancestors on. Oftentimes, people will tell us, well, you know, my ancestors were slaves, so I can't find them past the 1870 census. And we know that there are numerous records where our ancestors are listed, and oftentimes by name. But also keep in mind that sometimes our ancestors were free people, and they may be listed on census records prior to 1870. I know that that was something that surprised me in some of my research. I was assuming that all of my ancestors were enslaved, and that ended up not being the case. So just do an exhaustive search, and keep in mind there are many different kinds of records, and that's what Antoinette and I are going to share tonight. And in preparing for this, I actually found a surprise with one of the records I was looking at for one of, well, I was looking at this record in general, but I found a surprise related to one of my husband's ancestors. And we'll definitely talk that as we share record. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you will be notified of all of our videos whenever we go live or if we upload a video. And we do look forward to interacting with you. You could always leave questions and comments in the comment section as well.
Okay, Karran, thank you. I'm back. So what I would like to do, if you can start off with a record, and then I'll start off with one, after you. So, and we really want to examine that record really closely. So let you go first, and then I'll come after you and share my records that I want to share. So let's do this. Let you do one, I do one, then we go back, like checkerboard, okay?
Okay, let's see if I remembered how to do this. Everybody, I'm not with my computer today, so I'm learning how to share these things through iPad. So let's start with this record, or these records. One of my favorite sets of records. These are the Catholic diocese records here in Louisiana, and I know in other places these records may look differently. They may not be in bound volumes, but in Louisiana we have Catholic church records from the various dioceses around the state, and you can often find these records in your main library at your state archives. If you have any of the family history centers from the Mormons in your area, they often have copies. I found a full set of these records all the way in Utah at the Family History Library. And I use the, especially the Diocese of Baton Rouge, I use these all the time. And you can even write to the various dioceses so that you can go and see a copy of the original. I did that with the Diocese of Baton Rouge because I was researching one of my ancestors, and this book, it said it was illegible. So I wanted to put my eyes on the actual document that was written in French. And it was truly, truly amazing to see the actual document, because this record was from 1895. And they brought the record out and they showed it to me, and they even translated it. And that was really special. Let's see here. This is an entry from the Diocese of Baton Rouge related to my husband's ancestor, Frank Hawkins, and that's supposed to be Bibiane. I don't know how they got Barbette out of it. So keep in mind that sometimes you will find your ancestors' names misspelled, or they will give them a totally new name. And on here, you'll see right underneath where it says Hawkins, it says Henny. Well, Frank and Bibiane did have a daughter named Henny. This record is from Henny's baptism. And you'll also notice it says at West Oaks Plantation. She was baptized on October 5th, 1868. And her sponsors were Jackson Hawkins and Susan Hawkins. And those are the siblings of Frank, also known as Francis Hawkins. Those are his siblings. And oftentimes in Catholic baptismal records, the sponsors will be relatives. That's something to keep in mind if you're trying to piece things together. This was in 1868, just a few years after slavery ended, but prior to the 1870 census. So as you can see, this is a record with the names of formerly enslaved people on it prior to the census. These records are all over the state, and I'm sure all over the country, wherever there are Catholic populations, you can contact the archdiocese in your area to find out where you can find sacramental records. They include marriage, baptisms, and burials. So I definitely encourage people to take full advantage in your local area, wherever your main library is that has a lot of the genealogical records. Oftentimes you can find the Sacramental Records books.
Okay.
Did you have any questions about this document, Antoinette?
No, I don't. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay, all right. I want to share a couple of records here. Let me just all right. Okay, I know it's very, very, let me get another one. That's too small. Okay, can you see this record here clearly?
Oh, yes, that's really good.
Okay, this is the registration card for Johnny Williams. I found this record on Ancestry, and a lot of the men, when they turned 18 years old, of course, they had to register for the Selective service. So what I want to point out about the records is that the records give you a lot of information. This record can be found on familysearch.org, or it can be found on Ancestry. But let me just point out to you what you will find. First of all, you see the name of the person and the surname. It gives you the address where that person was living, as well as the parish where they was living at in Louisiana. So I see Amit, but Amit is not in St. Helena. Amit is in Tangipahoa Parish, but St. Helena is a parish, and so is Tangipahoa Parish. So I assume that he must have registered in Amit or something, but his address, St. Helena. All right, he didn't have a telephone. The age, 30 years old. And he basically said that he was born in Mount Pia, and he was a citizen of the United States, and his birthday. Now, I would like to point out to you that this record was from the first person, which Johnny is the first person. He was the one providing this information. He also gave the name of the person on line 7, Miss Lizzie Williams, but he didn't say the relations in line 8, relationships of that person. So we don't know if that was his wife or if it was his mother or sister. We have no idea. That was left blank. But most of the time, you will find that that line will be filled out to identify the relationship of that person. And once again, that person on line 9 said that he was in Amite, St. Helena. So I guess he was living in both places. Line 10 tells us that he was self-employed, and his employment was in Mount Pia, St. Helena. And there's his signature, Johnny Williams. So I just want to pull up another record to show you. So when you think that you will not find records, that is not true. Okay, another record that I pulled up that I would like to share with you is, while we're talking about examining records, because most people who are researching for the first time, they may not think that records are available, but we are here to tell you tonight, it is not true. You just have to start somewhere. So don't take that information and think that somebody, you will not find nothing. What we're looking at here is a sheriff's sale. And it gives you the location, once again, East Feliciana. And the date was the first Saturday of May, 1856, between the hours of 11 a.m. and 4 o'clock p.m. You are learning that your ancestors' life could have changed. It gave the person who they was opening up the succession on was Alita Sopshaw, consisting of the following enslaved 25 in number. So it told you right in this record, 25 people was getting ready to be sold between the hours of 11 and 4 o'clock, May 1856. And here's the people, the name of the people. So when you're looking at the records of that last name of Alita Shropshire, I don't know how you pronounce that name.
Shropshire.
Okay, Shropshire. Okay, here it is. It consists of a man named Tim, Ben, Frank, Bill, Ism, Aaron, woman Lucy, Miranda, Henrietta, Mary, Lucinda, woman Sal, girl Lavila, little Lucy, Emily, little Harriet. So that tells us that there was little, there was children. Boy Edmund, girl Louisa, and Fatima. Now that's a name that I would wonder if that name was carried over from the continent of Africa, because Fatima is a very common name over there. Boy Simon, woman Hannah, boy John, and girl Phyllis. So there you see that you can find records in the newspaper, has a lot of records that can be helpful in your genealogy research, and that could be very helpful when you're trying to research your family history. The last record that I would like to share before we go into Karran is a debt record, because that's very important when you are researching. But we do know now, Karran, we want to point out that at one time, anyone could have retrieved a debt record of a person at the Vital Records Office. That has changed under the Homeland Security Act. Now, if that record is over the age 50 and older, you can get that record at the state archives in the state that you live in. So this is a record of my third great grandfather. And it tells us that he was in Fluka, Louisiana, is where he died, in Tangipahoa Whole Parish. There's his name, Jack Barkins, male, colored. He was married. And it's kind of fuzzy, but it still gives a lot of information. And if you look at here, it tells his father's name. So that puts us back, that put me back another generation from Jack, which they called, his name was Jacob, but they called him Jack. His father was named Sam. So whoever the informant was gave some clear information on the family. And that's very important too, because sometimes that person who's the informant may not give accurate information. So just be aware of that when you're looking at debt records. Somebody will say, oh, well, that's not right. that's wrong, because that person who was given that information may not even be related and do not have to be related to the family. Turn it over to you, Karran.
Okay. One of the other records I want to talk about is ship manifest. I remember being surprised to find that we actually had access to ship manifest uh, that showed a lot of the ships. Well, I guess there are ship manifests from everywhere, but the ones that I've been looking at were those related to ships coming into the port of Louisiana. And if you would just, I don't know if you have had any experience with accessing those documents, but they're quite interesting. And Antoinette, by any chance, do you have access to that ship manifest document? I'm trying to figure this out on my iPad, and it's difficult. Well, tell you what, I have a photo of a snapshot from it. I'll show you this. This is a photo of a snapshot of the inward bound ship manifest on Ancestry. You can do a search for these documents on Ancestry. Where you see the numbers on the left side, might be your right side, 94, 95, 96, etc. It begins with number 1, and on this particular manifest, they were 151 people on this document. And on here is a family that we are familiar with, because when I first started co-hosting the show with Antoinette, I remember we did a show about Charles Daggs. And this is the ship. The name of the ship was called the Brig Tribune. And here Charles Daggs is listed here with his mother, Rachel Daggs, and his siblings, Eliza, Joseph, Ellen, William Henry, and Anne. I think actually William Henry ended up in Lafourche Parish, and I think Charles ended up at one point in Tangipahoa Parish. But these people were enslaved by former Governor Henry Johnson. And this ship came in from the port of Alexandria, Virginia, and entered into the port of New Orleans in 1835. And the reason these records are so amazing is that they had to, this was after the transatlantic slave trade ended. And once the transatlantic slave trade ended, any cargo coming into a port, if they had enslaved Africans on it, they had to show that these people were not from the band sale of people coming directly from Africa. And there are many, many, many different ships that came into the port of New Orleans, and I'm certain that's the case for the port of Charleston and other locations. But you can find these records on Ancestry. If you just search for slave ships and inward bound manifest and outward bound manifest, you can certainly search the internet for them as well, but they're easily obtainable on Ancestry. I have not searched for them on familysearch.org, but I would expect that that's something that you can find on Family Search as well. And anything you want to add to that, Antoinette?
Yeah, I would like to say that pointing out to people, because many people just assume that records are not available. And so we want to point out there's many records available: marriage records, land records, succession inventory records, birth records, death records, cemetery records, school records, military records. There are just so many. I would like to say to everyone that you need to start off in the county or the parish where your ancestors or your ancestor who you're looking for came from, and just look for records. I would like, if we could, Karen, let me just pull up Ancestry, and I'm going to put in just a name. All right.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be great.
And when we pull up a name, I'm gonna pull up a name I was researching today. Give me 1 minute, almost there. So that people can have a general, especially for beginners, because they're the ones who are really looking at. And if you don't want to pay that, the fundings for Ancestry, please don't forget, you can go to Family Search, and they will, okay, so here we have Ancestry. So we're looking at this record here, and once again, that's a record of, we looked at this record earlier, but sometimes they'll add a different feel to give, as people, this doesn't have anything new added to it, but just to give you a general idea of the type of record that you can find on Ancestry. Let's just go here. Okay, Find a Grave. Okay, so this is Find a Grave. And if I was looking for Melvin Stennis, we found out that he's buried in Mississippi. He died in 1980. His birth was 1907. And so there are records. And if you're looking for the census, at the census, here it is. Now the census will give you, and we want to point out that starting from 1940 and working your way back to 1870 is when you'll find your ancestors listed by name, given name, and surname. The surname is the last name. Do you want to point out anything here, Karen?
It shows the occupation, which is always good. That way, if as you're tracking them in various other locations, sometimes it's helpful to have that occupation. And what I always also recommend is that you definitely look at, this is a good transcription of the document, but also look at the actual document itself, because one of the things I found is that sometimes they have additional family members in the household, such as grandparents, and the grandparents may not always show up on the transcription, and sometimes next door or a few families down or before will be some other family members. So you definitely want to take a look at that entire document.
I just clicked on looking at who the neighbors who live next door around that area, and you get a general idea with all of these last names of the families who lived somewhere close by.
Absolutely.
Like we see now. I do know that the Jenkins and the Stennis family married into each other, but look at it, they was neighbors.
Yeah.
They was neighbors.
And
so
and it's also good. Yeah, and also good to see the family groupings, because sometimes when you're having a hard time, especially when they misspell the names, if you see the same family groupings nearby, then you know you're looking at the same family.
And Karen, that can happen quite often, that a person will misspell a name. So if for a new person, you may think, well, no, her name was spelled, her name was Kelly, but they had Carrie. So you really gotta just assume, just don't think that that's not your family member.
Yeah, a lot of times when the census takers were taking the records, they're spelling how it sounds to them. Understand, not everybody was educated way back then when they were doing these census records. And people kind of spell things the way it sounded to them. And then if they got that misspelled, it could still be further misspelled once the person transcribed it. So that's what make it difficult to find people. Just consider all the different variations of a spelling, just like I showed you with that document with Kenneth's ancestor, Bibi Ann Butler. Her name was Barbette. I know for a fact that her name was not Barbette.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, this is another debt record. Now, keep in mind the one that we had before. Sometimes later on, they may not have as much information. The other one didn't have a social security number. But if you look at this one, it has a social security number. And that person was 18 years old. The place that they was born in was the place that they was murdered, because you can see it was a gunshot wound in the face.
Wow.
Shot during an armed robbery at a food store. And there's a social security number for that person. And it gave the name of the father, and the occupation of that person was a security guard. So if he was a security guard at the store and he was killed in an armed robbery.
Wow.
Yes, you see that.
Wow.
Let's see. Do you see the date on this particular?
Yes, I see April 17, 1971 as the date of death.
Mm-hmm. And so if anybody's looking for records, look at he's buried in Lincoln Memorial Cemetery. So it gives you a lot of information. The most important thing is that when you get the record, read line for line for line for line. The date of birth was 1934. The date of death was 1971. Okay, so the length of stay in Dallas was 18 years. So yeah, he was born in 1934 and he was murdered in 1971. And the informant, it didn't, now back again, this one does not say the relationships to that person at that time. But if you look at line 19, it clearly said that there was an autopsy done on this person. And most of the time when people find a record, you do read every single thing because you're learning something about your family members. Every record tells a story. And for anyone that may be considering writing a book on their family, every little piece of information help you. And every little piece of information it's like being a detective. It helps you to go and find other records as you research. Because if we know that if he was shot during an armed robbery as a security guard, there was a police report done.
Yeah.
And that police report probably is a very lengthy police report. Because if so, he was killed in the line of duty.
One other thing to consider, since that was an armed robbery, there may be a newspaper article about it. So looking on newspapers.com or looking up the archives of the newspaper in the area, you may find a newspaper. And then also you're going to find an obituary. I'm sure that's going to list even more family members.
Because that was 1971, and clearly there was a lot of documents that was shared during that time. So when you're looking for records, just don't assume that there is no records that do not exist. I'm trying to pull up another record.
While you do that, there's a question from the chat. I'll go on and run that out. From L. Middleton, what's the best way to get information from a different state in which you live from local places?
Wait, repeat the question again.
What is the best place to get information from a different state in which you live from local places? So I'm assuming, let's say you live here in Louisiana, but you want information from Maryland. What's the best way to get that information?
I definitely would start off with the census first. And the census may have marriage records, debt records, and they would tell you exactly where that person lived, And so if let's say you live in Louisiana, but your family moved to Texas, you know what part of Texas they lived in, that would help you. And if it's, and you search the name, but now keep in mind, the more information you have, that's the more you can pinpoint that that's your relative. Because let's say if you're looking for a lady named Lucy Baker, there may be 5 Lucy Bakers in the same area. So it would really help to know more information. But I will start off with the census, because I have a record pulled up now, and you can see that in Texas, this record here will tell that that person died in Texas, the grave is in Texas, the death certificate is in Texas, that person was born in Texas. So if I'm sitting here right now in Louisiana and I'm looking for a family member, I'm already in Texas finding that my family member was in Texas and there was a lot of records. So if you find those records online, then you know that you can go to the courthouse, or you can call the courthouse and you can order records from the local courthouse in Texas.
And you also might want to check with the state archives in whatever state it is that you're looking for, or even check with some of the genealogical and historical societies. They may have a website with some additional information about families in that area. And of course, you know, the whole internet, there's all kinds of records to find on the internet, including using WikiTree. Especially if it's a family of a European ancestry that you know may have enslaved your family, or had some kind of connection to your family. Let's say you're looking at your DNA and you keep seeing a certain family show up. You may find that that family has already put their whole ancestry on WikiTree.
That is so. Go ahead, Karen.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I'm going to pull up, while you're talking about that, I'm going to pull up USGen so they can type of record. Okay,
sure, go right ahead. And so there are other locations on the internet in wills and probates. You can find all kinds of information from other states. Again, what we're talking about is not specific to Louisiana. In fact, most of the records we have to look up. Now, we've got our basic stuff from Louisiana. Now we're trying to find records from all over the country. And so it's important to scour the internet, especially since not everybody is traveling right now during the pandemic. Also keep in mind that many places have put a lot more, digitized a lot more records because of the pandemic, because they want to make things available to people without you having to travel.
Thank you for pointing that out. And so what we pulled up here is the USGen web project, and it covers all the states. I'm just going to click on Louisiana right here, where you can see finding your Louisiana ancestors. And I really want to, let's see, go back, let's go home, let's go to parish links. All right, so this is the map of Louisiana, and I'm going to keep on strolling and see if you see the parish site. Now, all these are the different parishes, and most of the states have the USGen website. And so, and you see the coordinator, person who contribute, and that makes a big difference. Now, a lot of times we may not have a lot of people in, we're contributing more. But I would say at first, it really wasn't a lot of information that was out there, but it's getting a lot better. So here I am, I'm in St. Helena Parish right now. And I just want to give you a general idea of some of the information, like you see the Social Security Index, the Genealogy Society, the Vital Records. I'm just going to click on Louisiana Land Records. So something isn't right here. So let's go to another page. Social Security. Okay, page not found. So maybe we need to go to another parish, huh? Because we're not finding anything. Churches, let's see if some, okay. I clicked on the churches right here. So as you can see, the church, somebody that sit there and donated all the information. Sometimes people do it, but these are all the churches that were submitted. And they'll tell you what these churches are. And you just can't assume that a lot of these churches are just white churches. They're not. But once again, it's what you're looking for and what that person has contributed. That's what I really want to say too, because That's very important because not a lot of times people will do this work for free. You want to add something to that, Karen?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay, now here it is. In St. Helena, there's the Bible records. I just want to click on one. Let me just click on the state records so you can see an act of benefit for Samuel Cobb. So if I click on that, you will see that the submitter was Annette Womack, and she submitted this in 1997. So I'm just going to click on that so you can see what it looks like. Here it is, Samuel Cobb's, where it has been made known to the legislation by several respectful persons that Samuel Cobb and an Indian woman of Choctaw tribe always lived and cohabitated as husband and wife during the life of the said Indian, and said that Jacob Cobb has with the said woman a child named Samuel Cobb. So you see, there it was. He gave the child his name. But I'm just letting you know, spelling is correct as it is in the copy of the book. No corrections have been made. And so that's very important to know that, because what I like about what this person did, they did not change anything. If you find it spelled incorrectly and you're transcribing it, you need to leave it that way. Any pointers on that, Karen?
Yeah, and later on you'll find it spelled correctly, so it's okay. Just with, on the different documents, just expect that, the spelling, it changes, but it doesn't change who the person is, especially when you have some other corroborating records that let you know who the person is.
Okay, so we're back at the homepage of the USGen Web Archives of St. Helena. And what you're looking at right here is the family histories. So these are people who just donated their family history to this site. And let me just click on one. I picked the Dempsey Kemp. So here it is, 3 generations of Captain Jonathan Kemp family. And let me see, who donated this? Let me go to the bottom. Okay, and they have the genealogy of their family. So like what you were saying a few minutes ago, Karen, is that if your family was enslaved, you must look at the last surname that your family have, but that doesn't mean that that's who owned your family, because your family could have changed, your ancestor could have changed their name.
Absolutely. And some people intentionally change their names, or they may have gone back to a previous enslaver because after the emancipation, they had hopes of their family finding them. So they might have gone to a previous name, especially if they were sold from that plantation. Mm-hmm. So they may not use the last surname, the last enslaver.
So what we really want to do is just give you a general idea of what you can find on the USGen Web Archives. Now I know that I submitted like several cemeteries, nine cemeteries. Now look at this. Now here's some of the work that I did. Antoinette Harrell, under my former marriage name, African-American men who fought in various wars. So here it is. What pops out, Karen? You see, number one, ancestors. You see, Harrell, Henry Harrell, Edgar Harrell, and it goes on. Frank Harrell, and so I just want to point out to you that you can submit that information. And to me, it was very important to do that because that's the way I was changing that information on African Americans wasn't documented in this parish. And I wanted to change that. So it wasn't a paid position to do. It was strictly volunteering like everybody else, but it was worth my time to document the history of African Americans in these 2 parishes.
Yes.
Would you like something?
Well, no, it's wonderful because it's important for people to know that as you're getting information about your family, that there's a place that they could share that information.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I want to point out to people, please don't hold on to it too tight, Karen, because a lot of times we hold on information so tight that we end up losing it. Let me just pull up the cemetery records. So make sure that if you're going to do it, and I love doing it because I feel like I am writing our family into history. And so all of these are cemetery records. And what this is showing is that the St. Helena Historical Association documented all of these cemeteries here.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I know this one here. This is Stephanie Martin. She recorded Jackson Chapel IME. All right, here's another one. I did a couple of these, and I donated to Lazard Church of God in Christ. I want to pull that up. And this one was not a very large cemetery when I documented it. As you can see, it was only 7 people that was buried at that particular time in that cemetery. Let's look at the year that I did this. This was some time ago. But it was important for me to do it because the Black cemeteries was not documented at all. And so,
like in the 1990s, I see.
Yes. And so here's Rocky Hill. I did Rocky Hill, and there it is, part 1. And I think how many people was in that cemetery? So as long as you see it strolling, that means that's how many people. Okay, it was 72 people. And now that could have been more. Let me just point that out. But maybe some of them didn't have headstones, and some of them was bad conditions that you just couldn't read them. So if I have 72, that doesn't mean that's all that was in it. What it means is that was legible, those 72.
And that's good. That record I see had, the birth date. So if you don't have, if you just know your ancestor's name, but you don't have that birth and death date. And I go back to the question from the chat from L. Middleton. Let's say you're looking for an ancestor in Louisiana, you all the way up in Michigan. You could look at the USGen web and pull up, if you know where your ancestor was buried, you can, find that birth date and death date if you don't already have it. You may have some family history information or oral history information that tell you, well, they were in Tangible Hope Parish or St. Helena Parish, and I know they attended this church or that church. So, having access to the cemetery record just may give you additional information, and you may find additional family members.
Exactly.
Oftentimes, people are buried around family members inside of a cemetery. So it's a good place to find those missing family members. I know that I need to get back to Assumption Parish and just go looking through the cemeteries there to find some of my family members that are missing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I want to pull this up because, I do want to point out that when I first started researching 30 years ago, there was so little information that I had to make a decision. Not only did I want to research my family history, but I really wanted to make sure that I put information there for other people. So I started this collection, and what I want to show you, if you look in this box 1, folder 1, so you don't have to live in Louisiana, you can live in California. It's a finding aid to let you know what's in this collection. No, you cannot see the visual record, but it tells you that in box 1, folder 1, there is photographs of Fluka, Louisiana, 151 items. That's a lot of photographs. And if you come down here, you see that number 5, Vine and William Richardson and Butler family reunion pictures. So if somebody is looking for something in this area, you can just take your time and just stroll down, and you see there's a lot of family histories that I have. The Gordon family files, 20 items. The Wall family files, 29. Lawson, Temple, the Church of God in Christ. That was Miss Fosha Wilson, 15 items. Thomas Tucker, 13 items. Now, I don't remember what those 13 items are because it's been so long. But obituaries, there's an extensive list of obituaries. African American 16, but there's so much more. West Side High School, 2 items. But just to give you a general idea that if you're sitting at home and you want to know if there's any records that's preserved, don't ever think it's not, because you will find something. But I just want to give.
So once they see this, use this finding aid, if they are coming to Louisiana,
Exactly.
and they may, this is a way to kind of streamline their research so that you don't have to go there just wasting a lot of time sorting through records. You kind of make a note of what it is you're looking for. You can go there and ask specifically for those things instead of having to browse once you get there.
That's right. Now look at Robert Zanders, 40 documents. Robert Zanders, again, 20 documents, four photos. Robert Zanders, again, 50 documents, 5 negative strips, 1 photo. And then there's letters, receipts, bills, magazine clippings, 36 documents. And so that's an extensive file. So like you said, Karran, if that person can save themselves some time, and they can do that at LSU Special Collections, there's a great finding aid. The Amistad Research Center is a great finding aid. So it's more than just researching documents in the library, because you may not find a whole lot if no one in your family or someone that has written a thesis or something like that, doing some extensive research and documenting that individual for a reason, you may not find it. But it's important for genealogists also to do the research, but also to document their research as well in the places where their ancestors lived.
Absolutely. No additional questions from the chat. And I just want to talk a little bit about the Georgetown Slavery Archive, since so much of the work that I do is regarding the sale. What they have been doing is collecting a lot of the documents that are in their archives. And some of those documents are from the Jesuit priest archives as well. And there's hundreds of documents. There are hundreds of additional documents to find. And so back to L. Middleton's question, that the Georgetown Slavery Archives has so many records. I'm sitting here in Louisiana, and I often go to those records because they're constantly updating it. And those records include the bill of sales. There's the ship manifest, the Catherine Jackson, which is the only one of the ship manifests that they've been able to find so far of the 200, supposedly 272. It was 2 people. It was more than 272 people, but I think it was only 130 or so that were on this particular ship, the Catherine Jackson, in 1838. It came into the port of New Orleans before the people who were on that manifest were distributed to Ascension Parish, Iberville Parish, and Terrebonne Parish. And so that website, Georgetown Slavery Archives, all you have to do is Google it. You will come up with many, many different documents. I was recently looking at the bill of sale after one of the purchasers. These people were purchased in Louisiana by Jesse Beatty, Dr. Jesse Beatty, and former Governor Henry Johnson. After Dr. Beatty died, I think in 1851, his heirs came from the East Coast to Louisiana to liquidate his property. And of course, liquidating his property included liquidating the people. And on this document, Antoinette, are you able to pull that document up?
Let me see. I put a lot of files. So keep talking. Let me try to look at.
Okay, yes. So on that bill of sale, as his heirs are selling the people, the property and the people, includes a listing by name and their ages and in family groups. And my husband had two sets of ancestors, his Butler family and his Hawkins family listed on there. Now, the sale happened in 1838. Now we're in 1853. So some of the older children that came here with them. Okay, that is the ship manifest. Well,
That's not the one.
No, that's not the one. I did this, but if you want, we can leave that there for a minute. That if are you able to make that a little bit bigger? Earlier when I talked about Rachel Dagg's family, and I just want to point out at the top of these ship manifests, they usually list the name of the ship captain. I think on this one is Captain Samuel Bush. There's also a book called Cash for Blood, and it lists not all but several of the ships coming in from Baltimore to Louisiana. And you'll begin to see some of the same shippers and captains on some of these ships. But it lists the people by name, their age, their height, their complexion. And I don't know if you can see little squiggly lines.
Too.
Yeah, say that again.
By gender as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely, by gender. Well, the little squiggly lines usually indicate the mother and children. So where it looks like that's
that little squiggly line.
No, over next to between the name and the gender, right by the person's name.
Right.
Yeah. So that indicates that was, well, it says infant child. And sometimes it'll say, like for Rachel, there were items listed on there beginning at 94 on a couple of pages over. But this comes from Ancestry. And this is obviously before emancipation, before the 1870 census. But you can see family groups on here. Sometimes they will list the man separately. And one of the things I later found, especially with Rachel Daggs and her family, I later saw another bill of sale document for former Governor Henry Johnson, and I saw that same family group on that other document. But these are priceless documents to have access to.
And without leaving your home.
Right, without leaving your home. Yeah, you
only see 4 documents, and that was the 4 documents that you pulled up earlier. So I must have left one.
Can you just Google Georgetown Slavery Archives and pull that up? And so while you're Googling that, I'll just mention also related to those Catholic Church documents. Inside of each one of those books is a list of the churches, and because they usually have a little code at the end of each entry, such as ASC or ASM, and they give you a list of what those codes refer to. Okay, so if you click items right next to the home tab and scroll down to G6, GSA 6. Okay, and if you go ahead. All right, so this is the bill of sale from the heirs of Jesse Beatty to Washington Barrow. He was one of the purchasers of the West Oaks plantation. And so this is basically the transcript. If you continue to scroll, this is the transcript of the original document. The original document is going to be very difficult to read, but in the transcript, it gives you, beginning here, the information about the sale. It was in the state of Louisiana, the parish of Iberville, or Iberville, as we say here in Louisiana, the recorder of that sale. And it goes on to talk about who are the parties to the sale. And if you go down to where it says number 8, And if you could, if there's any way that you could enlarge it, if not, that's okay. I can tell you what's on here. In number 8, yeah, it,
Go ahead.
yes, number 8, it lists some of the people, the enslaved people by name, and where you see like a little, look like a little degree symbol, that's just them counting number 32, number 33, number 34, and so on. And so as I was looking to this, I get to numbers 59, Patrick, a Negro man, age 57 years old. Number 60, Letty, his wife, age 52 years old, and her 5 children. Well, she had more children than that when they were sold here in 1838. And then I see number 61, Frank, now a runaway, age 24 years old. Now, Frank is my husband's direct ancestor. When I showed you the document earlier from the Catholic Church records, it showed Frank and Barbette or Bibiane, their daughter Henny, being baptized. I had no idea that Frank was a runaway.
Wow.
And so now I have more research to go do, because if he was a runaway, it is very likely that there's an ad.
There was an ad. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just wanted to point that out, because oftentimes a record will lead to additional records.
Exactly. That's very good. And that's what I like about being able to share with people. Do not assume that you will not find anything. Your family member would have just had to be just off the grid, totally off the grid. But if they went to school somewhere, there's a school record. If they died, and there's a death record. There's something on your ancestor. But in remembrance of all of those that came before us, as we celebrate freedom, we celebrate freedom by researching our own family history, knowing our own family history. And that is my freedom for me, is knowing that I can read when our ancestors couldn't read. I can lift up their name. I can be the voices for their experiences and share it with everybody. There's so many things that we can do now. We can write books, we can produce documentaries, we can make newsletters. There is so many things that we can do to educate ourselves, to educate our family members, and educate the youth about their family and the experience of their family. No one is going to do it for you. It's your journey. It is your journey. And while it can be a very painful journey, but it is a fulfilling journey, because if someone did it for you and handed it to you, you're not going to feel the same as when you have to stay up all night long. You have to visit those places. You have to pick up those books that seems to almost weigh almost like 30 pounds, a 30-pound book. You have to knock the dust off the books to read it. And when you do, and they pop out, it's spiritual, it's emotional, it's satisfying to know that you took this journey and they are worth it. Your ancestors are worth it.
And Antoinette, I gotta tell you, you're so right. When I found that document about Frank, because you always want to know that people resisted, and they fought back. And
that's right.
I would not have felt the same way if somebody just would have told me Frank was a runaway.
Yeah, right. But when you had to find it, and now you have to go and look for more documents, and you feel good. I mean, almost like if you found an ad, that would be one that I would want to frame it and hang it up on my wall, saying that Frank said, "I'm out of here. This is enough. I have freedom one way or the other." That's what that would mean to me.
Yes.
Yeah. So I hope that this segment of the show has been very helpful to you. And if you want to do something, celebrate your freedom by learning about your ancestors and knowing your family history and documenting it. I am so happy. There's a lot of new things that I'll be happy to share with you all next week about some work that's coming out. I cannot publish the work until June the 22nd. I have to let them do it. And then after they do it, I'll be happy to share it with everybody. And now that the pandemic is sort of opening, we're getting beyond that. We can go back to revisiting with the contract that I signed for the show. So it's just moving forward. So Karran, it's back to you to close us out for this segment of Nurturing Our Roots from Slavery to Freedom.
And just as we're closing out, I'm sure many of you have heard that Juneteenth is a national holiday now.
Yes.
And Juneteenth is coming up this weekend. I think it will have even more relevance as we honor our ancestors who were enslaved. So thank you, everybody who has joined us in the chat room, and continue adding comments as we close out the show. Go ahead, Antoinette.
Hit that bell, Karran.
Hit that bell. Thank you for joining us on Nurturing Our Roots. Please give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so that you won't miss any of our videos.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say we look forward to you joining us next Tuesday as Karran talk about some of the Jesuit history like she do on a monthly basis. So stay tuned and join us next Tuesday, same time, same place.